Magellan, the film we just watched, is the Philippines' official entry to the coming Oscars. Ladies and gentlemen, Lav Diaz. Golden Globe Best Actor winner, Gael García Bernal. How about another round of applause for Magellan? For both of you, Lav and Gael, this is your first time to work with each other. This is a series of really good questions. Number one, before you began filming, what did you know about each other? And number two, what were your expectations of each other? And number three, as you worked together and collaborated from start to finish, what did you discover about each other? Lav, what surprised you about Gael? And Gael, what surprised you about Lav?
It's like 7 questions. It's gonna take us 8 hours. I don't know. It's a privilege working with Gael. We sort of know his works. Ito Mama También, Amores Bellos, all the works. Let's check about our film. So Gael is like part of our culture now, not just in cinema. It's cultural thing. So it's a privilege. Thank you, Gael. Yeah, the work was, again, another privilege, because when we were doing the production for Magellan, it was only him. He's our choice. Albert Serra and Joaquin Sapino, the producers, we were, during the inception, the first gestation of the work, we just thought of Gael. It should be Gael. Yeah. Thank you, Gael.
Ah, thank you. Yes, and for me, well, I'm gonna say this, like, I've never said this in public. The first time I heard about Lav was through 2 mutual friends, Eugenio Polgowski and Michelle Lipkes. And they are friends from Mexico. And Lav, you went to Mexico to the FICO, no? Like at FICUNAM, and yeah. So, the first time I heard about Lav's work was through them, and also about their friendship as well, because good friends with Lav. So I kind of heard about this, no, and then they got an email from Natalia Lopez, she works with Carlos Reigadas. And the whole connection was that Albert Serra was saying, like, Lav would love you to be in the film, da da da. So I'm just saying this because everything, it's interesting how film works, because everything is like you start to build up a connection, like a sort of a family in a way, and a friend of a friend recommends something, and depending on what friend, you either pay attention or not, no? Because sometimes you go like, okay. But this friend was like, it was interesting, the whole idea, and of course Magellan and Lav was very exciting, and the excitement was bubbling up to the point that we met in Lisbon. We met in Lisboa there, and we had a good night of drinking wine, just Portuguese wine, and talking about everything, and the film, but also life and everything, and that's how we're here. And then my expectations were obviously surprised, surpassed all the time, because you expect something, but then it gets better and better and more interesting, and the whole experience of the Philippines was incredible. It was incredible to be there, to work there, and to live throughout the rain, the constant, never-ending rain, and the rain, and the rain. But it was amazing. It's the most friendly people in the world, and I must say that maybe it was also the most friendly people when Magellan arrived there as well. Yeah, like it was very welcoming all the time. So thank you, Lav.
Thank you, man. The last question of Ruben, how is it working with? It was daunting, of course. You know, Hollywood actor, huge, and you know, it's really daunting because you don't usually do that in the Philippines. You know, it's hard to get big actors, especially from outside, to go work in the country because first we don't really have much money to offer them. So it's how do you call that in Filipino? Suntok sa buwan, they call it, where, oh, let's try girl. And then he said yes, and it became that thing. And what he said was true. After a while, we're just family. We're just working on this vision.
And Lav, why did you always dream of making a film about Magellan?
Well, it's been part of our psyche, it's been part of our culture. Since birth, you always talk about Magellan, you know, from the comic books to music, everything. You go to the karaoke bars. There's a video of Gael singing Magellan, this very popular Magellan song in the country. So it's been part of our psyche. It was the first European to set foot in the country. He instigated this very Catholic and Christian perspective of the Malay people. In Southeast Asia, we're the only Christian country. It's because of Magellan. So there's a lot to talk about Magellan, why we are this so-called Filipino nation now.
Gael, what did you know about Ferdinand Magellan before this role was offered to you? Then after that, in your research for the role, and as the filming got underway, what new things did you learn about Magellan? As a man,
Okay, so this is the interesting thing about the character of Fernando de Magallanes, and also the interesting perspective we have on these characters, because there's many places to approach the character, but sometimes the immediate one is the official story, no? The H with a capital H, no? The kind of like, and I mean, recently, and with all the revisionists, but also at the same time, curiosity and genuine sort of insight and on the complexities of those times and of the characters and who they were and everything, we started to get to know much more. But I was, like I think all of us, just stuck to the official history. And Magellan is a bit of a marginal character. I mean, coming from Mexico, no, is a bit of a marginal character, not as in the Philippines, because we're in the Philippines he's right, you know, it's very significant. But in the history, he's a bit of a marginal character because he was always, you know, a bit of he was a traitor. He was an uncomfortable character. You know, they didn't know how to deal with it, and also at the same time, he lost everything. No, his wife died, his kids died. Like you know, it was done. But it's interesting that a lot of the things that his expedition led were named afterwards, after his experience. Not only the Strait, of course, but also the Pacific Ocean, for example. No? And amongst many other feats of this quite incredible, you know, the figure of Magellan, the explorer, no, also is a name that means crossing the unknown, you know, in a sense, you know, a bit like a Ulysses or Odysseus, no, type of character, no, that cross the limits of the curiosity as well. No? And this I started to read a lot about the character, of course, and read a lot about the history of the character, and started to know that I'm talking to Lav, of course, there were many, huge amounts of blanks in the history, you know, like things that we don't know, and things that we do know, but are not taken into account into the history as well. For example, if you read the testament of Magellan, which surely testaments are a way to get to know someone, no? It is, I don't know, it's something like 10 pages long, and and you read what, because of, death was something that was very close in those days, no, all the time, and especially in an expedition like this. And you read what the description of the testament is, which exists in the, I think it is in the Archivo General de las Indias, no, in Sevilla.
It was his last will and testament.
Yeah. So and you read it, and you get to know a little bit of the character and his priorities. God in first place, no? Religion, what did it mean in those days? Also, you know, let's go back to the time where I mean, recently sorry, speaking in English, is La Península Ibérica, the Iberian Peninsula was just conquered by the Catholic kings. So, and there was a huge persecution against the Jewish and against the Muslims, a huge persecution. And so everyone had to be converted, you know, or had to escape in a way, kind of like. So they were in that kind of hubris and you know, in that kind of craziness and realizing what's incarnating the character, which is perhaps the most Nirvana-esque expression of acting. Whilst incarnating the character, you thought, yeah, getting on the ship made you be someone. Getting on that ship makes you indispensable to begin with. Makes you important, makes you mean something, because back on land you're nothing if you don't have a title, if you don't have a nobility title, no, or something of the blood that comes, you know, those silliness that we invent, no, that we come up with. And getting on the ship meant something, no? So I, you know, starting to get to know the character on that side, you know, getting my hands dirty and mud, you know, of the character, and talking with Lav about it, and yeah, and then afterwards coming up with quite controversial and interesting hypothesis or antithesis almost. What if Lapu-Lapu didn't exist? Exactly. What, or you know, or little things like that, no? But I'm stepping ahead. Sorry, but you know, I just gotta mention that it's we're so fixated on the history with a capital H that, you know, that we always say, okay, it's the one that the people that won wrote, but at the same time, it's the one that the system, in a way, wants to put there and tries to encapsulate it and tries to give it to us in little pills so that we don't question it in a way. You know, as a kind of, like, I would say that it is a shame for us Latin Americans, mestizos, to not know that this is where we come from also. You know, Magellan is an integral part of our story as well, because it represents many of the people that left and that mixed and that did some, you know, it was a different, anyway, so it is very exciting, of course, it is incredible. And we need to make more films about all of this. Yes.
For both of you, last Monday, October 13, we celebrated Indigenous Peoples Day. This film makes us reflect on the indigenous people, especially those who were impacted by explorers like Ferdinand Magellan and Christopher Columbus. What are your thoughts on that, and also Magellan as an explorer and colonizer whose armed landing in the Philippines eventually led to the colonization of the Philippines by Spain?
For which displacement, colonization impacted, you know, you connect it with the word displacement. Yeah, Indigenous Peoples Day was last Monday. It's also Columbus Day, and we commemorate that with some sort of a conquest thing, but it's more of displacement, dysfunction, trauma, fracture for the, you know, marginalized during those times and up to this moment as well.
Yeah, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, yeah, I've got to say something. I mean, it's a bit sensitive, I think, because I stopped thinking about the 12th of October. You know, like I don't know why we're giving it a date. You know, like why? It's like, yeah, but in a way, like it's, and I think in Latin America we started to forget about it, about that date, because before it used to be called, and this is, I mean, a lot of people you would know that in Latin America it used to be called El Día de la Raza, the day of the race. Yeah.
Like we're all indigenous in a way.
Yeah,
There's just this laddering of Europe came up first. It became the most powerful empire, the Roman Empire, and everything.
But it's interesting what happened in those days, because some people call it that that's where everything started to begin. Like the world we live in, that's when it happened in a sense, no? This exchange of goods and of people and of travel and all that. But I think when you deal a lot into the history of these things, it's when the Dutch came. That's when the whole thing started. That's when really like the capitalism, like full on, not the one that we're living, the one that the proper sort of kind of the curse of the Islas de las Especierías. I don't know how to say that in English. I'm sorry. The Spice Islands, no, the Spice. Yeah, the curse of the Spice. That's when it began. The whole thing of what we're living in right now. But maybe destiny made Magellan and a few others. Like I'm intrigued by the figures of Francisco Serrao, of Gonzalo Guerrero, these people that traveled, that escaped, and that didn't want to be part of the whole, let's say, conquest endeavor, or the colonizing endeavor. They mixed, they had families, they became, I'm intrigued by these characters. And we've never made films about them. And we need to do them, us, the ones that speak Spanish.
Just to contextualize what Gael was saying. Francisco Serrao was the best friend of Magellan. When they got together in Malacca, they planned the whole thing. Francisco Serrao was the first European to go to the Spice Island, and he stayed there. He married an indigenous woman. He became the advisor of the king, the Sultan of Ternate, an island in Spice Island. And Magellan, he planned to go to the so-called Golden Islands, islands of gold. This is the Philippines. They planned it. They have letters. There are still letters existing between these two best friends. It was a plan.
Lav, in the press notes, you said that the film became more spiritual than you had originally thought because of Gael. Can you elaborate on that? What kind of spirituality did Gael bring to the role?
Making cinema is very spiritual, man. You don't act on things like this where, it's all about faith, not religion, but faith in cinema, faith in creating something out of, this huge thing that we know, but we don't really know. History is something that we know, but we don't really know. Like what he said, there are a lot of holes. And making cinema, specifically, it's a story anchored in a very, very specific epoch of the history of the world. It's very spiritual. You go back, you call the most ancient of our primal, existence. And while doing it, and you're discovering something, that's very spiritual.
Gael, on a lighter note, since humor is often how we process difficult histories, it was your first time to work in the Philippines. Of course, you sang karaoke. In fact, there's a viral video of you and two Filipino actors from the film singing a very popular novelty song about Magellan landing in Mactan, Cebu. So can you talk about that and shooting in some very beautiful remote locations in Quezon Province in the Philippines?
Yeah, well, everything that begins to social media stays in social media. Okay, let's not talk about that. You can always go to your TikTok.
He loves pancit.
Yeah, pancit was my staple food in the market of Sampaloc. It was amazing. Yes, incredible. And we were shooting in Quezon, in Sampaloc, in the Quezon province, which is on the west. of Manila, like you go like that. And I had very few. I didn't have much time to wander around because we were all day working, and doing things, But I had a lot of time to be in the town, and it was beautiful. I mean, me, my family, the people that we were working, we all engaged a lot with everything. We just, walked all over the place and swam in the river a lot actually. It was really beautiful. Yeah, it was incredible, and the people are amazing, and the crew were incredible. It was really nice.
Lav, Magellan is a revisionist in a major way because it debunks the existence of Lapu-Lapu. Supposedly the Filipino warrior who killed Magellan and defeated his Spanish forces. Lapu-Lapu is a hero in history books in the Philippines with statues erected in his honor. In your research, what did you find out about Lapu-Lapu and his existence?
I'm not claiming that my theory or what in the film is true, but it's really based on. When you do research, I did research for 7 years, and even before that, you act like an investigator at some point, and then it becomes like this forensic thing, very genealogical thing, where you read between the lines, you check the numbers, the data, and so many things didn't add up while I'm reading those things. One very particular thing that struck me was the Mactan battle, because it happened so fast. They arrived there after 1 week in the Mazawa. They were able to convert Cebu in 4 days. And then when Magellan declared that I'm going to stay here, I cannot go back to Europe, that's when things started to spin a different thing. And then suddenly Humabon said, oh, there's a guy there, there's a datu, there's a chief in that small island who didn't want to be part of the baptismal thing, the conversion. And then Magellan said, of course, then the decrease, anybody who didn't want to be baptized or converted would be killed, otherwise he'll be forced to do the conversion. But Humabon said, oh, no, he didn't want to do it. And then let's attack. So they did it in another 4 days. And then Humabon just, connected everything. Oh, we have to do the attack at dawn. And it's a small island. During that time, a small village of the Philippines, or the Malay villages in that part of the world, a small village is like 100 to 150 people. So there are 2 villages in Mactan. When they got there at dawn, according to Pigafetta, there are 2,000 warriors waiting for them at the shore. What is this number? And then you move forward. I'm just connecting these things fast. You move forward 56 years later, when Miguel Lopez de Legazpi declared that the Philippines is a colony, they introduced the encomienda system. The encomienda system is the first record of everything in the country. Like, Gael, you go to this island, you'll be the governor. Ruben, you'll be the governor of this province. So the guy this is on record, the guy who went to Mactan, who was assigned to Mactan, he went back to Manila and he said, Governor, the island of Mactan is uninhabitable. I found only 200 people there. This is 56 years later. If you are an investigator, you question all the things some of the things that Pigafetta wrote. And there are so many things. There are former expeditions after Magellan, before Miguel Lopez de Legazpi. They didn't mention Lapu-Lapu anymore. And Humabon was gone. And there's even resistance from Cebu again. So you have to connect those things. I'm just showing this thing as a discourse with historians, especially the young historians, to do your homework. And you have to check all the records. We have to go back. We have to go back to be nearer the truth of that period.
And I want to add to this because defending the hypothesis, let's be clear, it's a hypothesis. It's not a claim. It's not a,
Discourse.
It's a hypothesis of a theory that exists, no? And it's great to challenge the theories, and cinema is is a great vehicle to do that, because it shows the complexities as well, and the contradictions. And in order to dismantle, you know, that hypothesis, you have to make another film. No, because we can talk about it, what each of us, our opinion is, but at the same time, our opinion doesn't show the myriad of contradictions and of matices. Matices.
In English.
Nuances. Thank you. Yes, nuances. Nuances. There are myriad of nuances that exist in a situation like this. You know, it's. So I mean, I love working like that, and very proud that Lav did this, you know, to try to say, like, okay, let's question something, let's do, you know, there's so many absences of what we know, let's just make it into a kind of a hypothesis, because this is very plausible as well.
Nobody saw Lapu-Lapu. That's the thing. Yeah. And everybody was declaring him as this great warrior. So it goes also with the very, you know, debacle of Filipino culture now, which is myth making. That's why we have all those, you know, dictators and all these populist leaders, you know, now because of that. It's all myth making. So we have to examine the past so that we can at least counter all these things.
Gael, this was a writing challenge for Lav because he usually writes the lines and then edits them on the set. But since you have to prepare to say your lines in Portuguese, Lav broke his process and he had to write your lines several days in advance because the lines needed to be translated into Portuguese. So can you talk about playing a Portuguese character for the first time and brushing up on speaking Portuguese for the part? Because I understand that I think you learned to speak Portuguese several years before this role.
I'm gonna debunk your theories, right? So you know, Spanish and Portuguese are very close, and it was in one trip to Brazil that one trip that became like 4 months or something, where I started to learn Portuguese, where I learned Portuguese, but my Portuguese is Brazilian Portuguese. And in this case, I had to do yeah. And in this case, I.
Is this the old Portuguese, Brazil? No? The old Portuguese.
It's that's the interesting thing. Yes, that the Spanish that we speak in Latin America and the Portuguese that's spoken in Brazil is much more similar to the Portuguese that was spoken and to the Spanish that was spoken back in the days of Magellan. You know, in the 16th century, it is very, very close. It's crazy that we speak. I think even the English here in the United States is also closer to what it used to be. You know? So the problem is I had never acted in Portuguese, and it was like, okay, it's entering a whole new spectrum, you know, and also with a Portuguese accent. And so yeah, we just we like in the film, you know, there is in any film there's limitations and creativity comes with those limitations, and you maybe a little bit in advance, but still like there were these monologues that I had to learn and had to come up, you know, and be there and play with them, and it's a joy to work in another language. It's a joy to you know, to come out, to get the Portuguese that I am also inside, you know, of me, to put it out there, because it's this first try, it would never be repeated the same way, you know, and it was great to play with that, and it had to be like that. I was very, I remember, I think at the end, asking Lav and Joaquim, like, so in Portuguese, they were, yeah, okay, great, yeah. Excellent, but all the help from the people, from all the actors from Portugal who were amazing, they really helped. And again, what we do is also create hypotheses as well. Like, for example, Beatriz Barbosa, no, the wife of Magellan. We just know she was Beatriz Barbosa, the daughter of Tanana, the sister of Tanana. They had 2 kids. That's all we know. So you make it up. Then you play around. with it, and you play and we make lines, and how interesting it is to do, like, what happens in the intimacy in those days? What happened? You know, what were their conversations about? You know, the goodbye. How was it? How was, you know, like little things? It's so rich, so incredible. I mean, it's so great as an actor, you know, to be able to play with that, and that's why I always get very kind of like surprised whenever there is like, okay, this film raises a hypothesis that is very controversial. It's like, well, we're all the time doing, you know, hypotheses of what would have happened, you know, with this case, what pizza would have Magellan ordered. You know, historians don't ask that. But I kind of would have to have an answer, you know, whilst, you know, I would, and I think I know which pizza.
Lav, Magellan is your biggest film in terms of scale in your career. You shot with an international cast and crew with different temperaments and different cultures in 3 countries with 4 cinematographers, including you. And you filmed in a full-size replica of Magellan's ship. What were your challenges and what were the adjustments you had to make to direct a film like this that's bigger than your usual films?
I almost died. Yeah, 2 days after I finished the first rough cut of the edit of the film, I vomited a lot of blood. I almost died. You know, I was vomiting blood for 3 days. I thought it was pneumonia because I was coughing and coughing during our shoot. Starting in Portugal, I was already coughing, and then I thought it was just normal. It was self-medicating, and it's good because you get high with those cough syrups. It was cool, especially if it's cold in Europe. Anyway, after the vomiting, the doctor said, "Oh, you almost died. My left lung, you know, exploded. It's tuberculosis." So I was cured 2 months ago. Yeah. So it's, you know, it's again, it's very, yeah. But it's also a form of rebirth for me. I'm very rejuvenated by what happened. Life goes on, and now the work is here. You experience the film. It's, you know, it's a form of regeneration in terms of creation, rebirth, and having this new life again. You know, you just privileged to be alive again.
And Lav, quickly, are you still planning to release a 9-hour version of this film? What will that version show more of?
I don't know, because it's another film. It's not, this film is very much it's regeneration. It's own life. So if we can release the 9-hour film 3 years from now, it's okay. Yeah. We'll see. Yeah, it's there. I have a rough cut already, like 10 hours. 10 hours I haven't cleaned it up.
So, Gael, quickly, how did you work with that, Gael? Because Lav, because he likes the one frame and usually one take cinema. So, what fascinated you about that? And Lav, what continues to fascinate about using one frame and usually one take?
It's a very lazy filmmaking, no?
It's, you know, as an actor, it is always. Well, I think there might be some actors that we might be divided in this realm. I love getting lost as an actor. I love not knowing what's going on. You know, like getting completely kind of submerged into a world of I don't know where this is going. I have no idea, and let's be there, you know, in the moment to experience it. But definitely, in order to bring in, you know, the appropriation of the character in a way, and being, like I mentioned this example, but it's not. It's a metaphorical example, but it's a good one. Like, what pizza would the character order? It's important to have all these elements, you know, that sometimes help you to do this. And is the physicality, is the voice, is the, you know, there's many things, but like Lav mentioned as well, it is a spiritual journey as well. It is a ritual what we're doing, So in a way, you try to connect to something. You try to get into something. And it's such a privilege nowadays where everyone has the phone in front of their face, no one. And it's so nice to get to be disconnected, you know, and be able to play in a ritual, you know, and get yourself in the frame, you know, like completely outside of, you know, like not minding the communication of the problems or anything. And so I loved doing it. And sometimes, you know, after one take, I was like, Lav, I want to do it again because I enjoy this. Like, I want to do it one more time, just to have. And Lav was very kind to say, like, okay, let's do one more. You know, like, let's do one more. So I don't know, we didn't do many, maybe one, sometimes one, but sometimes two. But it was that feeling of like I loved doing this, and I think I can do it different, maybe not better, but just different, you know, and try out something and maybe look for this and kind of like exploring and stuff. You know, it's always but it's nice to not do many takes as well, because I mean, every film is its own world, but it's super nice to have that kind of, you know, that spark of fear and talent and expression that it just comes in whenever you do only one take.
Lav, you brought up that near-death experience. So, and I understand that you waited until 4 days. You've been coughing up blood until you finally said, take me to the hospital. So, what was that near-death experience teach you, or maybe you reflect on life and career and being here on this earth?
Yeah, I realized that we're just mediums here. You know, we do things. Every moment must be, you know, we should, you know, put premium in everything that we do. I realize that life is very short, it's fleeting. You know, we can just explode anytime. Putin, you know, drops the bomb. So, or Xi Jinping just drops the bomb on the world. So, what put me into really, you know, right frame of perspective during those moments when I was dying? I said, okay, I need to watch the finished product of Magellan. I had to leave. So I had a, in my, I was visualizing Magellan when I was like, 4 days of blood and blood and blood, and I didn't tell people that I was dying. I said, maybe I'll survive this. But on the 4th day, I said, please take me to the hospital. I want to see Magellan.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. Thank you very much, Lav and Gael.
Thank you.
And special thanks to the Janus Films team led by Michael Lieberman, the UCLA School of Theater, Film and Television team led by Jim Soro, Correa Silucia, Professor Chon, and Susan Santana. And Manila Nasal, led by CEO Dougie Simon and Chef Natalie Moran, who's prepared the food for the reception. Hopefully they have pancit. And Max and Lucy's for their delicious pastries. So please stay for the reception, and thank you very much again for coming.